Today's episode is brought to you by Andy Bovender. Him and his team, the Bovender team, have helped more than 5,000 clients in the Carolina area. So if you have somebody who's been thinking about making a move to that area, they are absolutely the team to call. Today's episode, I sit down with Paul Zweben, who is out of New York. But what's interesting about this conversation is how he brought his past experience of working in a kitchen into the real estate realm. Now, before we get going, if you'd like to learn more about the Inner Circle group, where you can hang out with past guests and learn and develop your business through them, follow the link in the description below. And as always, I'm your host and San Francisco referral partner, Shawn Kunkler. Paul, what's up, man? Thanks for doing this.
Thank you for having me on this beautiful Friday in New York City.
I'm stoked for it. Yeah, it's
Me
a
too.
beautiful day. I'm obviously on the other coast, and it's an absolute beautiful day today.
I agree.
I have to give a big thank you to Debbie DiMaggio for introducing us. I definitely appreciate her.
We met each other on TikTok.
Wait, you met Debbie on TikTok?
Yeah.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, we met each other on TikTok, and she was like, "You have to be on my podcast," and I was like, "All right." And then it was sort of when we were with a different firm, and when we were transitioning, we sort of regrouped, and she's like, "Are you ready now?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm ready." And it was great. But yeah, we met each other on TikTok.
That is so wild. There's actually, I'm saying it's wild, but there's also a handful of guests that I saw their Instagram page or LinkedIn, or I saw them on social.
Right.
And I'm like, I love what you're doing. You have to be on the show. It's like,
Right.
It's not a debate. And they're
Right.
like, okay. So yeah, I mean, I think, agents don't love social media, but it's a really, really very valuable tool for us to put our names out there, put our work out there.
I love it. My children, I have a 13-year-old daughter and an 8-year-old son. I drive them to school every day with hopes that someday they'll look back and say, "Daddy drove us to school every day." But right now it means absolutely nothing. And Olivia, our daughter, usually once a week, she's like, "Daddy, do you think you could not post once, like for one day, just for a month?" And I'm like, "Do you want to go to private school?" And she's like, "Yes." I'm like, "Then stop talking to me."
Though, I have two stepsons, and they're both amazing boys. The oldest just turned 21, and I met him 11 years ago. And recently I was driving with Nolan, the oldest, and he's like, "I didn't really appreciate it when I was younger." And he's like, "But you've always been available." And he's like, "I really want to work for myself when I get older, so I can do that too."
That's amazing.
So I think at some point it'll click for her. At some point they'll be like, "My dad drove me to school." Like, that's awesome. Like, that's, I think, as you get older, you get context.
Yeah.
And it clicks.
Yeah, I agree. That was nice of Noel to say.
Yeah, it was super cool. It was such a nice, it was such an honor. And now he's going down the entrepreneurial path, and I'm like, oh, that a boy.
Yeah.
So I want to get everybody really quickly up to speed, and then kind of dive in a little bit to your past and how you transitioned to real estate. But in a couple sentences, can you share who you are and what you do?
Sure. Paul Zweben from the Zweben team of Compass in New York City. My wife is my business partner. We have been business partners for 18 years. We've been married for almost 23 years, 2 kids, 8 and 13. My in-laws also live in our house. That's a whole nother story. We work at 110 Fifth Avenue, which is 16th and 5th, and we love Compass, and we love what we do, and we wake up to win for our customers every day.
Love it. But you didn't show up in real estate. Tell me a little bit more about what was your past life? Have you been completely neglecting your newsletter, social media, or any of your outbound marketing? If so, I have a solution for you. With little to no commitment, a virtual assistant can jump in and help you in those areas you just don't have the time for. For more information about hiring a virtual assistant, go ahead and follow the link in the description below.
Past life from 1979 to about 2006, I just wanted to be a chef. That was it.
Amazing.
And, I've told this story a gazillion times and some people have heard it, but I was taking home ec in seventh grade and I loved it. And then I took a career study program. I came from a broken family, so I sort of didn't, I wanted a career that I could spend a lot of time away from my family because of the broken family pieces.
Mm.
And it was either photography or cooking because I loved cooking. And it basically, I remember looking in like, the write up of a chef, and it was like, you can make upwards of $65,000 a year and you'll work every holiday. And I was like, done. Now, that, clearly that was just sort of how it catapulted me, but I
Yeah.
really love to cook. And I worked as an apprentice baker when I was a kid from like ninth grade to 12th grade in New Jersey, a town called Bloomfield. I worked in a huge bakery that really taught me that baking and food is all math, just like our business.
Hmm.
And that was in the mornings. Then I went to school for a couple hours. Then I worked in a restaurant at night. And then I went to the Culinary Institute of America for 2 years. Then I went to Florida International University for my bachelor's in hospitality. And then it was time for me to cook.
Hmm.
I did not have a job in New York City. I got a job in Morristown, New Jersey at a big hotel. A headhunter basically sort of played me. He was like, it's a New York City hotel in New Jersey. And I was like, yeah. But it was a great experience. And then I had some connections in New York. I got a job at the River Cafe, which was in the late 80s. It was like going to Wharton Business School to be a chef. Every single person that worked next to me became huge as chefs.
Really?
And one of the things that I admire about the restaurant business is it's such a fraternity.
Mm.
I have 4 guys that I was either their sous chef or were a line cook with them at the River Cafe starting in 1988 that I talk to every single day right now in 2025.
Wow.
And, they would jump in front of a car for me and I would jump in front of a car for them. So the fraternity is incredible in that business. And then I subsequently opened about 10 restaurants, 9 in New York, 1 in DC, and then hit the wall at 42 and said to my wife, I can't serve food anymore. And she said, you've been buying and selling real estate since you were in your 20s. You listen to every one of my deals when you're sitting in the living room. Why don't you be my business partner? And that was it.
Hey, real estate pros, be honest. You should be using video, but maybe you feel awkward, don't have the time, or just aren't seeing the results. This is where Kim Rittberg's Video Bootcamp comes in. This live coaching program helps agents create high quality videos quickly and confidently, resulting in leads and clients. Her students have seen results. One landed 3 new clients directly from social media, and others brought in millions of dollars in closed sales. Spots are limited, and to apply now, follow the link in the description below. Damn. That's a huge leap of faith. I appreciate the fraternity aspect, because I feel like when you're cutting your teeth and you're coming up with a group of people, it's a weird, different bond. I wasn't in the military, but I see it with my military friends. Mm-hmm. My pack was, we ran martial arts schools together. I ran it with a few guys, and I was literally just texting with them earlier.
Right.
Where I've known them both for a couple decades.
Yeah.
And I mean, and there's probably like 8 of us that our spheres all still bounce off of each other. So I totally get that. And I don't know where I would be without that, that core group around me.
Right. I agree.
But huge leap of faith, man, to go from, I mean, it's obviously a career change, but I feel like so much of that is you had transferable skills also.
Yes, 100%. 100%. So when I did the transfer, I remember my wife, and this is one of my favorite stories, but we were getting into a cab like the first day of me starting in the real estate business. And my wife is a 5'3" Salvadoran American who has a fast tongue and does not cut words. And we get in a cab and we're like going to some social event. And she looks at me, she goes, for the next year, I do not want you to talk about real estate to anyone because you don't know shit. She goes, just talk about food. And that's it. And I was like, really? She's like, that's what you know. And she was right, because we would be standing there. Carolyn would say, oh, Paul owned Cayocho and Rain East and Rain West and Django and Union Pacific. And people would start there and it would end up real estate talk with her. So it was like this, we played off of each other. And
Smart.
as I started to get, to know the business more, then it became, 75-25, 50-50. So, but, some of the things that were transferable was the customer is always right, even if they're not. In the restaurant business, when somebody wasn't happy, and I'm sure it was in martial arts too, you never wanted them to leave the martial arts studio unhappy.
Yeah.
And in the restaurant business, it was the same way. So if they had a $300 meal and they were going to leave unhappy and tell 5,000 people that you sucked, then you either bought them dinner or bought them drinks or coddled them or made them feel special in order for them to leave happy and tell 12 people.
Yeah. It's totally true. Everybody's going to gripe when they have even even just a slight inconvenience, but no one is going to, not no one, rarely do people just say good things. Like they have to, it's like, it's a hurdle to get, 1 out of 100 people to write one positive review.
Right.
Martial arts was even harder because, it's like the likelihood of injury is very high. And so you have like this other weird power dynamic mixed with it all.
Right.
But yeah, we've gotten bad reviews, but hey, got to keep your guards up.
Yes, agreed.
No pun intended.
Right. Agreed.
And from being, when you're running these restaurants, you were always back a house, and then you had, I'm assuming, business partners who ran other aspects of it.
Yeah. So as it evolved, so I was always the consigliere to all the chefs. So I would help them with labor costs and food costs and menu development and, employee, problems from time to time. As our business got bigger and bigger, I started to transition from sometimes it'd be in the back of the house and sometimes it'd be in the front of the house. So there was definitely kissing babies in the front of the house. There was interactions, more with the customer. Yeah. And it was for many years. I think I stepped out of the kitchen full time in 1995. Okay. So it was about 18 years of really working both. And, there's no question that the experiences that I had in the restaurant business have only made me a better agent.
Yeah. I can, it's interesting. You can see it. I've never worked in a restaurant, but I've definitely been to a plenty and have a concept of how business works. And so you can definitely see from doing those transitions how you wore different hats, and then those different hats, like your overhead costs still apply in this business. Your management of people obviously is, whether that's people on your team or whether that's clients or the agents that you're working, it all fits in, it all intertwines. And so much is a transferable skill. Sure.
Well, one of my favorite stories, and I've told it many times, was, you have a butcher and the butcher cuts 5-ounce filet mignon from a tenderloin of beef. And when it gets busy, they start cutting 5 1/4, 5 1/2, 5 3/4 ounce, pieces of meat. So by the end of the loin, they're probably losing one full portion when it's busy. And when it's busy, you're making money. Your food cost is an extra point. It is what it is. And then when it gets time to tighten up, that's where you're like, oh my God, the butcher has been giving away in the garbage one extra portion per tenderloin. And if you're going through 10 tenderloins a day, that's 10 portions. And
Mhm.
that could be, $630 of revenue. It's the same thing in the real estate business.
100%.
It's like if you need one leaf of 500 pieces of paper, everybody's going to use that. But if you buy 3 leaves and just leave them there for the same business, they're going to use all of it. So
Yeah.
it's about portion control and cost control.
Man, that is so true. And we saw, 2021, when interest rates came down,
Mm-hmm.
everybody was spending more. That's what, when rates come down, companies have more money to play
Right,
with. They
right.
spend more money, they grow. There's more waste. There's more fat to trim, if you will.
Yep.
And not dissimilar, my business, like we spent in areas, we tested things, we tried things because we had excess, and then the interest rate spiked,
Right.
business stalled,
Yep.
income was dead. And so now it's like, okay, now what are we going to cut? And your two biggest expenses always are your rent and your
Yep.
people.
Yep.
And then it's okay, let's start managing portion sizes. And so it totally makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the hard thing is, how do you continue to portion control even when you're busy? And that's
Right.
your systems and processes always
Right.
come back to that.
Right.
With your current business now with your wife, I'm sure your personalities are totally different. What hats do you play within the team itself?
So there are some deals that we work on together,
Mm.
and there are other deals that we work completely separate. And a lot of that has to do with, what type of brain that the seller or buyer has. Are they financial people? If they're financial people, I'm dealing with them. If they're touchy-feely people, then most likely my wife is going to work with them.
Mm.
Our negotiating skills could not be any different. She will let people wait and wait and wait, and I want to get everything done in 12 and a half seconds.
Same.
Yeah. And, but I basically, help run the team in the office, and Carolyn does a lot more stuff outside of the office.
Makes sense. And how big is your overarching team?
7 people.
That's a good size.
Yeah.
That's it's kind of the sweet spot. I remember talking to Courtney Smith, who runs the coaching program at Compass, and she's like, once you hit 5, it's that tipping point when it just starts to run really efficiently, because you have basically all your bases covered by that point.
Mm-hmm.
Did you find the same thing to be true?
Yes, 100%. I mean, we had a team of 12 at one point, and that was big for us, but it was only for a very short period, and because there was some people that were in transition. But yeah, 7, 8 is I think that's the sweet spot.
And you guys covered just New York, or did you branch out?
So we have a 57 unit rental building in Brooklyn, which is amazing, that one of our junior agents brought in.
Wow.
So we do a couple parts of Brooklyn, sort of like right outside of, if you take the 2 or the 3 train to Brooklyn, so Carroll Gardens, Brooklyn Heights, Prospect Park, like all of those areas we cover. But then the majority of Manhattan. We'll also do Harlem.
Okay. That's a pretty good, that's a very reasonable amount of space.
Oh yeah, yeah. And then, my wife and I live on the Upper West Side, so we do a lot of business on the Upper West.
Yeah. It's that always tends to be a common thread, is people tend to do, they either tend to do their neighborhood, or they'll even, if they live in a building or a high rise, they tend to be like the go-to in that building if they've been there long enough.
Yeah, no, we just sold our 24th apartment in the building that we live in, and there's only 39 units.
That's a testament right there.
Yeah.
That's it's nearly impossible, unless it's like, oh, my son's a realtor. Like, it's impossible for anybody else to wedge their foot into that at that point.
Right. So yeah, that's a very big pillar for us, our building.
What do you do to maintain that communication going out? so people know that you still reign supreme for that building?
So we do a lot of like soft touches throughout the year. For Valentine's Day, we bought these cute little welcome mats from like Walmart. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, I put one down in front of every single person's apartment in the building. And
Brilliant.
then we had a stick with a picture of our golden retriever Rudy on it, like a fan, and it said, "Happy Valentine's Day, love Rudy." That was it. And some of the old timers, and we like old timers. Some of the old timers was like, "Oh my God, that's the sweetest gift ever," and we loved Rudy's, fan, and it was really nice. But we'll do a holiday party every year in our apartment for just the building. And then, whatever things that we sell, we'll send a mailer to the building that, look, we just sold this and so on. So, but they know what we do.
Yeah. That's brilliant. I love the idea with Rudy. That's such a good play.
Well, you have a brand new dog, so you should do it.
Well, not only that is we've been walking her around the neighborhood and all the neighbors know her and her name.
Yep.
But they don't have any. It's kind of hilarious. They're like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I know we've met a couple times, but what's your name?"
Yeah.
But they know. They're like, "Oh, Scout's coming," and so it's funny that you just leaned heavily into that and was like, "All right, this is Rudy's promotion."
What you need to do, because I almost made the mistake once. I don't know. I was like really grumpy one day, and this guy came over with his big dog, and he was like jumping on Rudy, and in my head, I'm like, "Sir, like my dog doesn't want to play with your dog. Stop." But I was, I stayed calm. And 2 days later, I went on a listing presentation, and there he was sitting on the other side. So thank God I was not. Yeah. Thank God I was not rude, as we say.
Oh my
City.
gosh. Yeah, and let's kind of talk about that, because I know right before we were recording, we were talking about just keeping a level head, but you were mentioning that, we've all seen these cooking shows where everybody's like crazy and frantic and on a scale of 1 to 10 stress levels, everybody's at a 12.5.
Yep.
And you were actually saying this is more stressful. And I was like, hold on, wait, let's put a pin in that and talk about it on the air. 'Cause that's not what's perceived, especially just given, I get it. It's not real. But if you just look at the two types of TV shows, the real estate ones and the cooking ones, the cooking ones look exponentially more stressful.
So one of the things that we were taught when we were younger as cooks, basically everything is like, again, math, but it's also timing. And what are you throwing in the pan first? What are you getting hot first? Are you putting salted water on for pasta? Is everything like in the same order every single day? The shallots, the garlic, the sea salt, the black pepper, the white wine, the sherry, all in the same place, so you can be organized. The cooks that are not organized and don't understand timing, they're the ones that the pressure quadruples instantaneously.
Yeah.
And the problems with the restaurant business is, and I think it's somewhat with the real estate business also, is there's alcohol and drugs and not sleeping and staying out until 4 a.m. All that stuff adds the pressure. But I feel that in the real estate business, you're playing poker with some very experienced people and some very inexperienced people. And there's a lot of moving parts in the real estate business that you just don't know what you're going to get thrown at. And, like you said, I don't like to wait. I want immediate answers from whatever we're doing.
Yeah.
And if I feel like something is up in a deal, I want that fixed, because I don't want that pressure. So I actually feel like the pressure is tougher in real estate than it is in the food business.
It's so fascinating. It's interesting because, again, systems and process is the core of what we do. And you literally just shared that in the chef who's falling apart and falling behind, it's because they don't have a system and process.
Right.
And it's like, whether it's written down or just intuitively patterned, it needs to be there.
Right.
It's such a fascinating thing to hear to be put under a different a different
Hmm.
scope.
So have you ever heard the three words mise en place?
I have.
Okay, so in my brain, mise en place is life. And essentially, let's say I'm the fish cook at a high-end restaurant or a low-end restaurant, whatever.
Mm.
I have to have every single thing to prepare those three dishes in the exact same place every single day. So I can then cook all those dishes with a blindfold,
Mm.
and I know where the shallots are, I know where the garlic is, I know where the wine is, I know where the stocks are. And it's the same thing in our business,
So true, man.
right?
It's
So,
true.
mise en place is life. Um, it's like your shit together. I mean, that's what it essentially
Yeah.
means. And, but it's incredibly important to be organized.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of the difference between going fast and rushing. Like rushing, you're
Uh-huh.
skipping steps. Going
Yep.
fast is you've just compressed time. You're doing all the pieces. You're just
Right.
doing them at an expedited speed. One
Right.
of my favorite movies is have you seen The Founder? I'm sure you have.
No,
Really? It's
really.
The Founder is the story of McDonald's, of how it came to be. But my epiphany watching that movie as it relates to real estate is there was this really super cool scene where they're trying to figure out the rhythm of the kitchen. And so what they did was they went to a tennis court and the camera's like overhead and they drew with chalk where the different things were. And then they had people move around. And then they started moving where the chalk was, basically moving the stations to increase efficiency. And my
Hmm.
epiphany was they didn't set out to make fast food as we know it. Like it wasn't intended to be like greasy, low quality. It was made to be food fast,
Right.
which is a completely different distinction. It
Hmm.
was place an order, get your food, and it was all in an expedited fashion. And it really sounds like that's what you mastered when you
Right.
were cooking. It was like
Hmm.
you made, whether it was in terms of cost of product, either low cost or high cost, but it was the same level of efficiency from A to Z.
Right. And I'm sure you go out all the time. Even my kids know when there's people in the kitchen that are cooking with love or no love. And it's just like deals that we're doing. We're doing a deal right now on Riverside Boulevard on the west side. And the agent, very sweet young man. Um, I think he met the people on a street easy lead. So he paid for the lead, it's fine.
Yeah.
And he is the laziest person I've ever met. And if it's like if I threw him into a kitchen, it would be like, dude, you got to go.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier. It's like sitting down at a poker table. It's far easier to play with people on a high level
mhm,
of skill versus a low level, because the low
right,
level, they have no systems, no process. Everything's a
right,
wild card.
hmm,
They go all in on the worst stuff, and you're just like, what are we doing here?
right.
There's the level of predictability is even harder.
Yep. No, I agree. I agree.
It's fascinating though. It sounds like with your skill and your trajectory, and then tapping into the TikTok side, it sounds like you're satisfying that itch you had early on for photography.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, again, look, part of my business plan for 2025 was to do two pieces of content every single day. And
Good for you.
yeah, I mean, I'll definitely do over 700 pieces this year, ranging anywhere from 7 seconds to 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
Some of them are professionally done. Like if it's a listing of ours, we're going to hire a professional videographer. But the majority of it, like I did one today. So I boxed this afternoon before we started,
Nice.
and when I came into the office this morning, one of the younger agents was giving me a hard time because I was in like gym shorts and a sweatshirt. And so I went and boxed. And then on the way back to the office, I literally put my camera up on a wall, like a brick wall, and shot like a 12-second video of me saying, you were sweating me, saying, like giving me a hard time. Then, came here, cleaned up, and then did another half of the video of me tying my tie. And I was like, Michael, don't mess with me. And that was it, you know. But it's like,
Nicely
it can be,
played.
yeah, but it could be, it's their food videos. We did Shabbat dinner at Robert Refkin's house. I don't know if you saw the video,
I
but
didn't see that
our
one. No.
whole team, we cooked for the dinner, and there were
That's
like
amazing.
18 people, and the videographer that came is a young guy that we started working with, and I just looked at him. I said, "This is your deal. I'm just going to cook. You're going to shoot it however you want. I may point some things out," and he killed it.
Oh.
Like, I'll send it to you when we're done with this, but he killed it. And we did another one with Amy Byrne from the Bob Vendor team.
Oh yeah.
We flew down to Charleston, me and my wife and my kids, for Valentine's weekend. I called them up. I said, "This is the idea. We'll go to one of your listings, um, and we'll do a quick tour of the property, and then we'll end up in the kitchen, and then me and Amy will cook." And it just grew from there. Like, Amy was like, and I think you know how Amy speaks, but she's like, "Why don't we have a Galentine's event?" And I'm like, "What is a Galentine's event?" And Heather, who runs our team, was like, "It's a girls' Valentine's." And I'm like, "Okay." So they invited like 10 of their top female, customers,
Mm,
and like the whole thing just evolved. Like, she had 3 assistants come with flowers, and they like tie them up beautifully,
brilliant.
and the thing was awesome. And and at the end, and I don't say this, but it's like, you can say, like, say you were from the Bronx, you'd be like, "It's nice meeting yous guys," like USE.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I said, "I'm so happy yous guys came," and she's like, "Paul, we're from the South, it's y'all." And I'm like, "Bye, y'all." But so it's like, just doing whatever. But we've done,
Yeah.
including the Shabbat dinner, we've done 4 of these already. And it's like, that hook was, look, you can buy a house in the Hamptons, or the same amount of time from New York City to Charleston, you can buy something for $600 a square foot.
Yeah.
That's a choice. And that was the hook. Um,
With that hospitality.
right. But there's other hooks that I've done where I'll talk about food in a
Smart.
video, and then I basically say at the end, "If you think I know a lot about food, wait till you talk to me about real estate." And so I'm
Good hook.
melding the two things together.
Yeah, I mean, not for nothing. The two that I live in San Francisco, so it's
Right.
like food, food,
Yeah.
food, food, food.
Yeah.
But the two things people want to talk about is food and real estate.
Yep.
That's it's the two safest conversations to have.
Hmm.
It's then you can get away from religion and politics, which is
Yep.
phenomenal, exciting to me.
I agree.
Um, what for it, clearly you put out a ton of content. Two questions. What's been for real estate the best platform? And then the second question is, what's the one piece of content that just stands out in your mind as like the showpiece of like, wow, that one just way outperformed everything?
So I'm not a Generation Z. So I am on Facebook, and I would say Facebook has been the best lead generation, um, that I've ever had. One
Wow.
of the best stories was about right before COVID, or a year before COVID. I got a direct message from a builder in New York City, and he was a friend of mine on Facebook. He's like, "Hey, Paul, I have this friend. He just sold 3 car dealerships in Florida. He wants to buy a $10 million apartment on the Upper West Side. Are you interested in working with him?"
You're
I'm
like,
like,
let me think about it.
let me think about that. And um, and we met, and 3 months later, he bought a $9.75 million apartment at 15 Central Park West, which was amazing. Um, I would say the best video that we ever did was during COVID. It was Karen, my wife and I. We were upstate with our family because we couldn't sell, and we have a house upstate. So we're like, basically, the kids are in the house with my mother-in-law. We're in the car. It's now like 3 months that we have not gone back to civilization. And I look at my wife and I start talking, and she just stops me and she goes, "I don't care what year the Mets won or lost the World Series. I don't care about anything sports wise. I just want to get my nails done and my hair done and be with my girlfriends. Like, and we got so many responses from that post
It's so
because that's how
authentic.
right, because everyone thought that, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. We
So
were
I would say,
all dying for that at that point.
right. Yeah. But I would say that was the best, one of the best ones.
That's yeah, and what I love about that, you did not mention anything about real estate. It
No.
was the human component
Right.
just came through, and that's
Yep.
I think that's what sometimes agents lose is like, oh, I only have to be talking about real estate. It's like
No way.
that's not what clicks sometimes with people.
Right.
We'll have to connect offline. I didn't realize you had a place up in upstate. I have
Yep.
my younger son is likely going to RIT.
Nice. Nice.
So I'm sure I'll be traveling back and
Yeah.
forth even more so. I have family in Connecticut, so now it's
Oh, nice. Right. You told me that.
another reason to make some more trips back
Yep.
east.
Nice.
When did you, at what point in your career, when did it click and you're like, all right, I'm going to just go really hard on the paint with social media?
So about right before Lehman imploded, we were
Yeah.
selling an apartment at 55 Liberty Street, which is
Mm.
downtown in Financial District, for like $5.3 million. And it was a big deal for us.
Yeah.
It still is a big deal. And we felt at, you know, the guys that were buying the apartment got board approval, but we felt like something was going on. And both of these guys were financial attorneys in the, you know, financial world.
Oh, geez.
And so it's the day of the closing. It was an estate sale, and we're sitting down, the buyers are sitting down, and in walks this red-faced Irish litigator on behalf of the buyers and says, "We are prepared to buy this apartment today, not for 5.3, but for 4.3, all cash." And we're like, this is not going to close. And of course, the executor or the attorney for the estate basically told him no, and we were adjourned, and the deal never closed. And I remember taking the subway with my wife up to like 6th Avenue in the 50s, and we walked into some, you know, coffee shop, and I'm sure this has happened to you where you feel like you got punched in the stomach.
Yeah.
And Carolyn looked at me and said, "We need to be different." And I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "You need to do more food stuff. We needed to be more on social media." And around then it was like Facebook and Twitter. Like that was it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, I remember when I was doing a lot of food stuff on Twitter, and Brad Inman sent me a direct message, and he said, "If you know as much as you know about real estate as you do about food, I want you to be my agent." And I was like, this shit works. You just got to put the time in. And that was it. So really right around the, you know, the Lehman implosion, we really started doing more and more stuff.
And that was many years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like many. Yeah. And to your point, back then there just wasn't that many social outlets in general. So you've been doing this for quite a while.
Yeah.
It should be old hats to your kids.
Oh yeah. Yeah. My daughter's on it. Like when we landed, we were in Jamaica last week for spring break. And when we landed, you know, my daughter asked me for my phone for Snapchat. And I'm like, "You have your own phone." She's like, "There's a whole system, Daddy." I'm like, okay, like whatever it is. I think it's sort of to like say you're in two places. I don't even know what it is, but they know a lot more than I do.
That's hilarious. And I'm so curious of what her play was with that.
Yeah. I think it's a geographical play. I'll ask her, but she won't tell me.
She's not going to tell you.
No.
It's so funny. I remember, I don't know why I just thought of this, but when Nolan was probably 14 and just using his phone way too much and playing video games like way too much, Cielo put his phone on restriction. And I shit you not, like a day went by, and next thing you know, he's on his phone like all day. And I'm like, "Don't you have restrictions on there?" And he's like, Yeah. And then we were at dinner and I was like, when NASA comes up with these problems and they can't solve it, I'm like, I don't know why they just don't give it to teams.
Yeah.
What Nolan figured out was if he goes in and changes the date of the phone, it resets it. So every time he ran out of time, he would just go back a day in time and just go back a day and it would keep resetting. And I was like, bro, you figured that out in a day.
Yeah. Right.
That's incredible.
So much fun.
Like
that's hilarious.
They're wired on a different, like,
oh yeah.
They're just different. Kids are different these days,
yeah,
which makes me feel really old and sound really incredibly old.
Mm-hmm.
And it's cool. It's actually very cool that you adopted and figured out this strategy in your wife too,
right?
To do this thing. At this point in your evolution, obviously you've been doing it for a lot of years. What would you say? Again, two questions: is who's reaching out to you? Is it directly buyers and sellers, and/or is it more agents who have referrals for you? And then I lost the second part of the question, so we'll just go with that.
It's both. It's
really?
Both. Yeah. When we had connect the dots, like in the beginning of the year, this year, I think it was the beginning. I don't even know what. Yeah, no, at the end of last year, where like 800 agents came to our office, and I just met like 5 different people, and I want to work with people that I know.
Yeah, same.
And subsequently we met for lunch in the city, and then we sat in one of the rooms, and I'm like, okay, we're going to do a Q&A. You're going to ask me 3 things, whatever you want, and I'm going to ask you 3 things, whatever you want. And I didn't practice. I have no idea what I'm going to say, and you don't know what you're going to say. And it's sort of fun because it's like we just learn about each other. And by doing that and then just reaching out every couple weeks, not weeks, but months, hey, this is what's going on with the market. Hey, how's everything? How's your son? Whatever, but it's got to be real.
Yeah.
And, you start to do business with people that you like. And then, but, past clients is very big.
Yeah.
And then the kids' schools are massive.
I 100%, I would 100% agree with you. It's a community that you already, you're tapped into, and you have a very unique access to when people are watching their kids perform or do a sport, and you're there as a supportive parent. It's just an easier conversation to have with everybody. And they inevitably ask, "Oh, what do you do for work?" And then
it's 1,000%
parlays into it.
Yep.
Yeah, I like the 3 questions. I think that's really good. I always do, as you know, with the Inner Circle group, I do introductions every other week, and I think I'm just going to add that, is ask each other 3 random questions.
And it's fun because what happens is, like, if you look at all the videos that I've done, it's food and real estate. Like, it's like, what's your favorite pizza in New Jersey? What do you think your market's going to be, and best ice cream store in New Jersey or whatever. But it's just fun. And it's not like, let's do it 20 times. Let's ask 20. No, it's just 3 questions.
Just 3, which is easy. And it's like, it's super easy. It's the one thing that I always go back to and think of is, and I heard this years ago, but it's kind of like that when you think of a movie or a movie character and you think of your favorite movie, and like, let's say James Bond, it's like, all right, what his profession is. Everybody does. But then you start layering, what else do you know about them?
Right.
And you're like, oh, he likes martinis or drives this car, wears this watch. And that's what it does, is it starts giving people more context of you, which ultimately you start to understand their decision-making process, what their values are. And ultimately, then, if I have a client who's thinking about moving to New York, I have this Rolodex of information about you, and using the term Rolodex dates me. I get it, but I have, if hypothetically my client's selling a restaurant and they're moving to New York, it's like, oh my gosh, they're going to have, they're going to be able to riff Paul in this person. They're going to be able to riff on a whole different level and make a much better connection, which connections always make the transaction just so much more smoother, because you have all those lines of communications are open, And that's what it's
Yep.
about. It's like, how do we then facilitate this amazing experience for this
Right.
client?
Well, so I got a referral about 2 years ago from they they're a judge on Chopped
Mm,
and chef, and I know like I knew the person, but we didn't know each other, you know, personally, but I knew her. And I remember the first day that I took her out, um, and she was like, bring me to like 4 or 5 places between 2.2 million and 4 million. I'm like, okay, that's like a wide range, but whatever.
huge range.
Huge. So I take her, the first stop was a $4 million listing in this beautiful building on 86th Street and Broadway. And she looks at it and she's like, oh my God, the courtyard is spectacular. It's just like this fabulous building. Then we go to a $3 million property and it's clearly different. And then we're heading to the $2 million property and she looks at me and she goes, you had to serve me caviar in the first course, didn't you? And I was like, I'm in love with this woman because like we get each other,
Yeah.
and but we really understood each other. Like it was real estate, but it was food.
Yeah.
So I agree with you about the three questions, how you can really find a lot about people in those three little questions.
A ton.
Yeah.
And I mean, and again, I think at the end of the day, when we're playing matchmaker, we have that special client to us that we helped them buy a home years ago, and they had their family and their kids went off
Yep.
to school, and then they're like, hey, we're thinking about up and relocating to this state. And you're like, you know
Yep.
what? I got the perfect person, and here's
Yep.
why. And
Yep.
it just creates a different, it moves everything out of that transactional experience. And then,
Right.
and like you get to work with this client. You're like, oh my God, I love them. They speak my
Yeah.
language.
Yeah.
Like you're just riffing on a whole different level
Yep.
of, I don't know. I just think it's such a cool way to approach it and put
Right.
your passion out into the world. Additionally,
Thank you.
Paul, man, this was fun for starters. And I always
I agree.
I like glance at the clock and I'm like, holy crap, we are actually over time. So thank you. I really appreciate this conversation. I think there's a lot of awesome little nuggets to pull out of it. Thank you.
I'm going to send you the Shabbat dinner video in like 2 minutes.
Please do. And then I want to see that. Did you take a video of the one with the Bovender team?
Yes, I'll send you both.
Oh, that'd be amazing. And awesome that you mentioned that. We didn't plan it, but Andy Bovender is actually who sponsored this episode. So
I know. Thank you, Andy.
And that is a wrap.